All right, back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. Nick Barris here, and we're taking your phone calls. We've got one more segment, 737-7587. Professor Thomas Schwartz joining us from over at Vanderbilt. Professor, good morning to you, and thanks again for joining us. All right, 9 days until the election. I guess what we should expect between now and then will be the candidates hitting all of these states that they consider to be swing states that are very important. Anything else that we should look for in the coming days between now and then, and keeping in mind the last day to early vote in Tennessee is this Thursday?
Well, I think you're going to see President Trump sort of very much engaging in what he does best, namely these rallies around the country. He'll be trying to do that. Joe Biden's going to take a very different tack. In some ways, he's going to do a sort of coronavirus style limited number of events, a lot of virtual events. So there's going to be quite a contrast, I think, in how the two actually approach things, which is partially a representative of the different ways they see situation in the country as a whole. I think in that sense, it's going to give Americans a real choice on Election Day.
And, you know, we keep looking ahead to how things will play out at the polls and when we get the numbers in. And come Election Day, just visit to us. At what point do you imagine we will know who the winner will be on November 3rd? Mm-hmm. And will we know on November 3rd?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things is to look at some of the states that close early. So, for example, if Ohio, a state that went for Trump quite considerably back in 2016. If Ohio looks to be trending toward Biden, I think you can almost say that in the famous "The Fat Lady Has Sung," because if Trump starts losing in the Midwest, the states that close early like Ohio, close the polls early, then I think he's going to have a real problem replicating his coalition. And then after that, I think it will be key to look at states on the East Coast like Pennsylvania, like North Carolina, like Florida, to see the trends in the election as they're going. But I do think this Midwestern situation, particularly Ohio, but then also the key states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, will really tell the story in this. We can pretty much predict. We know how certain states are going to vote, New York and California, or a state like Tennessee, but it's those key critical states that will tell us the story.
Let's get Wayne next. Wayne, good morning. Hi, Wayne.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering, Biden if he's a Catholic, isn't that a foreign government also? And if it is, can he have dual citizenship and be president? And second, what's wrong with changing from a democracy to a monarchy and have a king and eliminate all the congressmen?
Let's go get a king. How about that? Just like England, something along those lines. Yeah. Probably that's kind of why we broke away from England, wasn't it? We didn't want a king ruling us. We like a democracy. Now, you could have a dictatorship. That would solve all the problems. You would have no more voting, no more elections, and no more free choice. Only an idiot would like that. So with regard to Joe Biden, and I don't know. I don't really understand his question. Did you get his first question there? What was he referring to?
Yes. The interesting thing is that's kind of a throwback question to 60 years ago when John Kennedy was running against Nixon as a Catholic, and the idea was that Catholics owed a loyalty to the Pope. And in the 1960 election, that was a very trenchant issue. There were a lot of people who were fearful of a Kennedy presidency as being tied somehow to the Vatican because of Catholics' obedience to the Pope. Now, John Kennedy, of course, was not that type of president at all. And Joe Biden is certainly not that type of Catholic. And if you look at how he stands on various issues related to Catholic faith and Catholic beliefs, he's quite independent of the church. So I don't think the caller has to worry about Joe Biden and the Pope.
Let's talk, too, about this. And you hear about it sometimes in elections, whether or not a president who is elected has a coattail effect on the Senate and the House. And so if you would, just give us a sense of where things stand with regard to the House and the Senate. And if one of the parties is in danger of losing either one, the Senate, of course, held by the Republicans, the House by the Democrats right now, depending on who wins. If Trump were to come and have a strong showing, could that help the Republicans in the House? Vice versa, if Trump doesn't do well, could that really hurt the Republicans in the Senate?
Well, I think the House is unlikely to flip. There are just too many situations. The Republicans weren't able to field as many candidates as they wanted. They would need an exceptionally strong showing by Trump to even have a prayer of taking the House. The Senate is, of course, a different question. The Real Clear Politics average has it almost evenly divided right now with a number of toss-up states. And I do think that it will depend to a certain extent how well Trump does to whether some of those candidates prevail. And it has a slightly different effect. I think, for example, a strong Trump showing in Iowa would carry Joni Ernst, a embattled incumbent Republican there, probably over the victory line, whereas I think Trump is unlikely to be able to help much with Susan Collins in Maine. In fact, she's sort of separated herself and hoping that somehow her independence will manage to hold on to that seat. So I think the Senate is really in play. Right now, it looks like it's going to flip to the Democrats by 51-49, at least in the current averages, but it is really quite close.
And I'm just curious, too, about others out there campaigning for the two. We've seen now Barack Obama has been out of late in person making some appearances. It is interesting, while the president is out making his appearances, you don't see past Republican presidents, specifically George Bush, out there campaigning for him. Yes, there are some sitting congressmen and women that do, but I mean, I don't even know that they're actively that way. Is there, how do you observe that?
Well, there you see a simple fact. George Bush's Republicans have many of them have deserted Trump. There was an open letter signed, for example, from national security professionals who served in the Bush administration endorsing Biden. So to a certain extent, the type of establishment republicanism that George Bush represented is no longer part or as active in the Trump Republican Party. So what we've seen is a certain element of realignment, at least among certain groups that might have in the past supported or been campaigning for it, whereas the Democrats have stayed much more consistently with the loyalty of their past president, and certainly Obama is making a major effort to help Biden across the finish line.
Do you think both he and his wife, Michelle, I mean, clearly, and we know, I mean, Obama was out there for Hillary last time around, and we saw how that played out. But I mean, you know, President Obama and Michelle, who is respected by so many people, have been out as well. How big a factor could that be, and why do you think, if you do, it might be more of a help to Biden than it was last time around for Hillary?
Well, I think Hillary had other marks against her, whereas Joe Biden's service in the Obama administration, him being vice president, a loyal vice president to Obama, the key for Obama and his wife is to generate turnout. And in particular, in those Midwestern states, if they could turn out a higher proportion of African Americans to vote for the Biden-Harris ticket, I think they could turn those states, and that would be absolutely significant in deciding the outcome of the election.
Real quick, we'll squeeze in one last call. Who is it? Are you there, caller? Jim? Go ahead, Jim.
I am.
Yeah, hi,
All
Jim.
right, thanks. I just wanted to comment on the Bush Republicans. Those are no longer part of the Republican Party. We've got 96% approval in the Republican Party, and we know what the polls did look like in 2016. They predicted, what was it, an 80-20 landslide for Hillary. So we know that Trump is probably leading in most of the polls.
Okay, and hang tight. I had to cut you off because we're right at the end. And he's right, though. I mean, it's changed completely. That's why it'll be very interesting. Obviously, he believes the president will win. This will be a conversation for you and I down the road if the president does not, because this president is unto himself. And you wonder about the future of the Republican Party, because there is not a Donald Trump in the wings. I know he has children, but aside from that, there's not a Donald Trump like anything like him on the planet in the wings right now. If he goes away, at least in the short term, and you wonder where the Republican Party goes, and I think he is correct that Donald Trump, for now anyway, is the face of the Republican Party.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question that Donald Trump has remade the Republican Party in his image, and that is crucial. Yeah.
The question will be, if he goes away, is the Republican Party in disarray? What the heck happens next, quite frankly? You really do wonder.
Right.
But that's a question for later, because we still have a presidential election, and it's going to be interesting to watch. Professor, listen, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate you coming on. And we'll talk more as we build up closer to the presidential election. And I do address everyone, regardless of how you want to vote, get out and do so. Voice your opinion. Have a say in who the next leader of this country is, whether it's President Trump or Joe Biden. again, the last day to early vote is this Thursday. If you miss that, you've got November 3rd, folks. And don't mind a few lines. Did you vote yet, Professor?
I have not.
You have not? Okay.
Not yet.
Well, you're going to look at a little bit of a line. I voted a couple weeks ago, and I waited for
Okay.
about 25 minutes, and it was not half bad. And, of course, the weather was still warm, so that was okay. So anyway,
That's
get
right.
out and vote. Professor, thank you. It's good to see you, sir. You take care of yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Take a break. Be back with a programming note to everyone right after this.